What's up, Yordle Man, the Waifu Collector here, still the only fair human on Earth, and we all know about Marvel and DC, the superhero juggernauts that have been rivals for God knows how long, but not only within the comic book industry that their popularity originated in, the rivalry has extended to other mediums like movies, and more importantly for this video, games. Now, are Marvel and DC literally directly competing against each other in the games industry, going game for game as it were? No, but because of who they are and what they do, us as fans will forever compare them no matter where it is. And compare them we shall, because I want to just take a look at the position of superhero games from Marvel and DC currently. You know, take a look at how it's shifted from the past and what could or should happen going forward. So let's do it. And let's start by talking about Marvel in the here and now. Because right now, at the time of this recording, Marvel games are fragging the fuck out. They've been making their presence in gaming really fucking felt in the last few years or so. And it wasn't always like this. Not that they didn't have games, but they just weren't games that felt like they were must plays or just swept everyone up in them, you know? And also, just flat out weren't always the highest quality. And so even though Marvel had games, some good fun nostalgic ones too, and their gaming presence pretty much always had more quantity than DC, what happened is that DC beat them to the first legit guy. The first big high quality must play superhero game. It was Batman Arkham Asylum. And we'll talk more about that and DC in a little bit, but eventually Marvel came back with their own legit hitter, the 2018 Spider-Man game by Insomniac. However, this was still not the full directional shift into Marvel gaming dominance, because you have to remember Injustice 2 was released the year before Spider-Man. And no one had forgotten about the Arkham series even though it had ended 3 years prior to Spider-Man. So the release of Spider-Man was just viewed as Marvel catching up. And despite the release of Spider-Man, they still didn't have all of their shit together. The following year in 2019, they did release Ultimate Alliance 3, but that was more so a novelty series of a bygone era and was unfortunately trapped on the Nintendo Switch. And in 2020, they dropped the absolute commercial and critical dud that was Marvel's Avengers. This game really stunk up the joint. People didn't like the gameplay loop, the live service aspects, or the fact that the characters kinda looked like off-brand MCU versions. And so Avengers flopped so bad that it dragged down the next big Marvel game with it, 2021's Guardians of the Galaxy. A game that really no one played because of the stink of the Avengers game, but the few people that did play it would tell you it was surprisingly good. Regardless though, the combined failure of these games literally almost tanked Square Enix altogether, had they not saved their own life with Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that's a different story. Anyway, in 2022, Marvel's Midnight Suns had a similar fate to Guardians of the Galaxy, and it wasn't until 2023 that Marvel hit a crazy fucking stride. This is the year Insomniac's Spider-Man 2 came out, and just like the first game, it was a huge hit. And the following year, you kinda get a double whammy. You get a small nostalgic whammy, and you get a big fat juicy whammy. See, Marvel must have gotten in a better relationship with Capcom since the failure of the last Marvel vs. Capcom game, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite in 2017. Because somehow, to the surprise of many, Capcom managed to publish a Marvel vs. Capcom collection in 2024. A big bundle of some of the most iconic games involving Marvel characters. A nostalgic whammy. But that same year, a hell of a whammy. Marvel and NetEase would show up to snatch the crown off of Overwatch's head with the release of their own hero shooter, Marvel Rivals. An absolute instant fucking hit, a big budget game with a great art style that gave them a foothold in competitive multiplayer, not just big budget single player like Spider-Man did. Now they had both. But on top of that, there are other announced games that we know of and are scheduled to release next year, like Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra, another big cinematic single-player game this time focused on Captain America and Black Panther, and the upcoming fighting game minus the Capcom characters, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. So as we can see, these days Marvel is putting out a lot of big budget, high quality efforts, and I doubt they plan on slowing down. Not to mention that mixed with all of this, they've managed to find a place for smaller budget games as well, but with no less quality and effort, like the old school style beat 'em up Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Marvel's simply in a great place with its games right now, and all they've got to do is keep their eye on the ball and continue doing what they're doing. So, what's up with DC? Alright, let's talk about it. Because for no small amount of years, DC was viewed as the leader in their gaming battle with Marvel, despite always having fewer games. And as we touched on earlier, that was because of Batman Arkham. Because at that point in 2009, there was no higher quality superhero game. Arkham Asylum was simply a high quality game that happened to star Batman. And that's not how licensed characters were approached before then. And in the following years, Marvel didn't match that quality. Batman was left to freely reign supreme, and then DC took a bigger lead by adding Injustice in 2013. And they did this just as the developer NetherRealm was hitting their own stride. So it was perfect. So then there's Batman sequels all the way up until 2015, and Injustice 2 in 2017. And for all that time, it just feels like DC up two big ones, and Marvel's got nothing but a bunch of little stuff we don't care about. Of course, until Spider-Man. But we're well beyond all of that now. Marvel is absolutely killing it. And DC? Well, it's been 10 years since the last Batman game and 8 years since the last Injustice released. There was also a canceled Wonder Woman game that got announced and just never came out. But also, we talked about how Marvel's Avengers flopped and threatened a company and cost lots of people their jobs. That was in 2020. But last year, in 2024, DC figured two can play at that game, because they released their own critical commercial stink bomb, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. And if I remember right, this game lost the already struggling Warner Bros. $200 million. Fucking sick work. And so yeah, that's DC games right now, pretty much a whole lot of nothing. So what should they do? How can they fix this shit? Well, Rocksteady, who did the Batman Arkham series and Suicide Squad, well, they've been put back on Batman duty, internal sources say. So expect a return to that in the coming years. Maybe not the most exciting thing, but a good strat to earn back some favor. Also, NetherRealm, the Injustice and Mortal Kombat developers, have pretty much wrapped up on the most recent Mortal Kombat game, and so hopes are high that their next project is in fact the long-awaited Injustice 3. So okay, theoretically, DC will have its two primary guys back. That's a good start. However, you'll probably need a couple more. And I think if we're keeping it simple, we need another big budget single player game, but focused on a different hero, RIP the Wonder Woman game, but maybe pick someone with fucking powers, so that we're not just playing Batman Arkham, but I'm Green fucking Arrow or whatever. And alongside that additional single player game, we need another character driven game, by which I mean a game rife with characters where the amount of characters and their individual traits are what make the game, something like Injustice or Marvel Rivals. I've talked about thinking DC should have a MOBA in the past. I'll put that video up at the end, and yes, I addressed Infinite Crisis for those who know. But yeah, man, DC needs to get their heads back in the game, and I didn't really mean for that to be a pun, but I'll take it. It's just unfortunate that these two comic book titans can't seem to have good games at the same time. But if they all wanted to make some real money, then they know what to do. Marvel DC crossover. They're finally back at it in comics, they might as well start doing it in games. Just imagine the money. But yeah, this was just my little look at superhero games. I think the trajectory of Marvel and DC's games is interesting, so I just kind of wanted to spontaneously talk about it. But be sure to let me know your thoughts on any of this down in the comments. What kind of games are you hoping to see from Marvel or DC in the future, maybe? That kind of thing. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like and consider subscribing for more good gaming talk. Even if you don't though, thanks for watching, and even if you forget everything from this video, just remember, I am Yordleman the Waifu Collector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I have never convinced anyone of anything ever. Goodbye.